Kısa adı MİSGEP olan özellikle madencilik sektöründe iş sağlığı ve güvenliğinin geliştirilmesi projemiz kapsamında tarifini yaptığımız konular çerçevesinde konunun uzmanı ile toplantılarımıza devam ediyoruz. Efendim ben Gökhan Güler. MİSGEP takım lideri olarak bu programı çok değerli bir konumla beraber sunmak için buradayım. Bugünkü konu başlığımız madencilik sektörü özelinde meslek hastalıkları, getirdiği yükler ve muhtemel çözümler. Bugünkü programımızın çok değerli konuğu, konumuzun dahilinde kuşkusuz dünyanın en etkili uzmanlarından, otoritelerinden biri Sayın Profesör Cas Badenhorst. Kendisi bugün Güney Afrika Cumhuriyeti'nin en güzel şehirlerinden bir tanesi Johannesburg'dan online olarak katılıyor. Kendisini misafir edeceğiz. Welcome to our session today, Prof. Badenhorst.
Thank you very much.
Firstly, on behalf of MİSGEP project, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for making your time available for us this afternoon. Very much appreciated, and hopefully you are well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay. If you don't mind, I would like to introduce you to our audience in Turkish. Then I will come back to you. Is it acceptable?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. Professor Cas Badenhorst, fizyoloji, iş sağlığı ve hijyen, maden mühendisliği ve çevre mühendisliği, sağlık ve güvenlik yönetimi alanlarında bir dizi yüksek öğretim derecesine sahip bir uzmanımız. 20 yılı aşkın bir süredir iş sağlığı ve hijyeni alanında çalışmakta, sertifikalı bir iş hijyenist pozisyonunda son 6 yıldır Anglo Amerikan PLC bünyesinde bulunan iş sağlığı biriminin başında bulunuyor ve bu birimi yönetiyor. Cas aynı zamanda akademik çalışmalarında büyük ilgi göstermektedir. Kendisi şu anda Güney Afrika Cumhuriyeti Potchefstroom kampüsünde bulunan Northwest Üniversitesi'nin Fizyoloji Fakültesi'nde iş sağlığı ve hijyen alanında olağanüstü doçent unvanını alarak çalışmakta. Aynı zamanda Güney Afrika İş Hijyeni Enstitüsü ve eski başkanı olmakla beraber an itibariyle Uluslararası Madencilik ve Metaller Konseyi'nin çalışma grubunun başkanlığını yürütmektedir. Cas, again, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I gave your very brief introduction, your CV, and I noticed there are two organizations. These are SAROH and Icmm. Could you please clarify the mandates of those two organizations for my colleagues here in Turkey?
Yes, so the first SIAOH, South African Institute for Occupational Hygiene. That is the professional body that's registered with the International Organization of Occupational Hygienists that represents the discipline of occupational hygiene in Southern Africa. So in South Africa, we've got a proficiency scheme. So if you want to practice as a occupational hygienist or a certified occupational hygienist, you need to be registered with the Southern Institute for Occupational Hygiene. We are based in South Africa, South African based organization, but we do have members across Africa because it's the only professional organization for occupational hygienists on the African continent. So we do have a number of members in Southern Africa, but also towards the Central and Northern Africa.
And the ICMM?
So Icmm is the International Council for Mining and Metals, based in the UK, head office in the UK. It represents 27 member companies. So those are mining companies across the world, including Anglo American, BHP, Rio Tinto, Hydro, Tech, Glencore, Barrick, Goldfields. There's a number.
SAR-32, I guess, Sibanye, all of them.
Yeah, that's it. It represents about 30 regional and commodity associations as well. So commodity associations would include like the Copper Association, International Copper Association, the Nickel Institute, and the aim of this body is to actually work together as companies to strengthen our environmental and social performance across the minings and metals industry. That also includes our performance in health and safety.
Okay, great. Cas, thank you very much for this clarification. And also, I noticed you have too many hats. But today, I think this is quite important. You are not here to represent Anglo at all. You join us in your personal capacity, am I right? I think we have to clarify. And you are not representing any company, you join us on your personal capacity. And if you don't mind, I would like to start our sessions. The first question, and by the way, if you want to use any slides or if you want to show anything, you can use screen. You are more than welcome. The first question in my mind is, do we have any indication of what occupational disease burden is in the mining industry? Could you please share your view with us, please, Cas?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a difficult question because we actually we've got limited data to tell us how the industry is doing. And I think it's broader in the industry because if you look at occupational health and disease data across all industries, it's not well recorded. I'm going to share I've got a slide or two on that I would like to share with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So what we do know is that there is a significant disease burden in mining. But the burden is very hard to recognize, as I said, because we don't have readily available data. Typical occupational diseases that we see in mining include diseases like lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, silicosis, and coal workers pneumoconiosis. And I think if you reflect on the media in the last 2 or 3 years, we saw the silicosis litigation in South Africa, where gold mining companies was taken to court by ex-mining workers. But we also saw the whole media debate around coal workers pneumoconiosis, black lung, in Australia. And that sort of highlighted some of the issues. But there's also other issues or other diseases that's not that easily recognizable, like musculoskeletal disorders and noise-induced hearing loss, which I believe are even more, the burden is even higher than these known ones. Yeah. And again, I think there's other diseases that we haven't even started to explore, like dermatitis, the mental health amongst mine workers, and then tuberculosis. There was a paper by Prof. Driscoll published in 2015 that had an attempt to indicate what are the burden of occupational diseases in mining industry. And one of the statistics he published in his paper was the number of deaths occurred in the mining industry in 2013 that was contributed to occupational diseases. And you'll see and he didn't cover the whole of the world. This is only based on data that was available at the time. And you'll see that in 2013, it's estimated almost 30,000 workers lost their lives due to cancer. Now, that's only cancer associated with workplace exposure to cancers like diesel particulate matter, cobalt, and those substances in the workplace known to cause cancer. You can also see on the graph there for silicosis that more than 20,000 workers are said to lost their life due to silicosis, and similar for coal workers pneumoconiosis. Now, if you look at these numbers, they are actually quite concerning. And it tells me that as an industry, we still got a lot of work to do concerning to diseases. We then subsequently did a bit of further research in the South African mining industry. This information on the slide is for 2017. And what you'll see there in that graph is that in 2017, South African mining industry recorded 90 deaths due to fatalities. So that was 90 deaths that involved people that fell from heights or people that got struck by rock falls and so forth. But what's really alarming that in the same time frame, In the same year, 975 deaths were recorded due to occupational diseases. Now, that deaths is made up by silicosis, coal workers' pneumoconiosis, etc. That represents 91.5% of all deaths, work-related deaths in the mining industry in South Africa in 1 year. In addition to the 975 people that lost their life due to occupational diseases, 652 workers were diagnosed with silicosis. And as we all know, silicosis, the outcome of silicosis is death. So you can actually add that 652 to the 975. And to me, this reflects a very grim picture in terms of the burden of occupational disease. And I think the industry as a whole needs to wake up to these numbers, and we need to focus our attention, not taking attention off the fatalities and the safety aspects, but if we don't work to curtail or alleviate this risk around occupational diseases, we're going to lose more colleagues in the future due to occupational health burden. Thank you.
Cas, thank you very much. I think it's very important information. Do you think this situation is different in other leading countries in mining industry like Australia, Canada, United States, or Europe?
I actually don't think so. I think this picture represents very well what we see in the industry in general across the world. So if you take this picture and you put it across or you put it next to the Grimson paper, the number sort of equals out. You know, it's sort of a 90-10% split between health and safety fatalities. My concern in this space is these are countries where data gets regularly recorded.
It's important, yes.
Yeah, my concern is in countries where these diseases don't get regularly reported, or where countries don't have that system where it gets reported. One thing in South Africa, when you compare South Africa, Australia, America, and so forth, there's quite a comprehensive legal framework around occupational health and safety, with very specific incident reporting requirements, including health and so forth. But if you look at a number of other countries, the legal frameworks are very poor or non-existing. So a lot of the incidents don't get recorded, and we don't see the numbers. And a lot of these numbers are not obtainable. So that's one part of the picture. Yeah. The other part of this picture, where I think even the numbers we do have is an underestimation, is the fact that these occupational diseases take quite long to develop, very often 20 to 30 years to develop. And what very often happens is this illness is only manifested itself once the employee is retired. And once he then becomes ill, he goes to the state hospitals or the state facilities or his private doctor. And his illness don't necessarily get diagnosed and recorded as occupational illness, because the doctor that he sees doesn't know about the workplace history in terms of exposure. So my personal view is I think even the numbers we've got is an underestimation. Yeah. And the numbers might even look worse for countries where we don't regularly record information on occupational diseases and deaths related to occupational diseases.
Actually, it's quite frightening, isn't that, Cas?
It's quite frightening.
Frightening. Cas, okay.
And if you look at conditions, when you go to mines, if you still see the conditions that employees work under, especially in terms of dust and noise, it is actually alarming.
Alarming, yes. And Cas, thank you very much for very clear problem statement. Now we clarify the problem. We know this is a problem. Now let's have a look. What are we doing currently? What are the South African mining industry they are trying to do to address this unique or the challenge associated with occupational disease burden?
Yeah, so a lot of work has actually gone into with the Icmm on health, and we've started the discussion around the importance of occupational health and the prevention of occupational diseases within the Icmm at about the early 2000s. Pre that, the Icmm was very much focused on fatalities, because that was the topic at the time, was the number of people killed in fatal incidents. And we brought the health agenda to the table. And I think what was quite a breakthrough was for us to accept that fatalities due to occupational health is as important as fatalities due to fatal or safety incidents. So the focus of the Icmm is very clear. We are working towards zero fatalities and serious diseases. Our ambition is to demonstrating improved performance on health-related issues, which will have a positive impact not only on the life of our employees, but also on general business, and it will make the business much more sustainable. The Icmm has published a number of guidelines in the past around occupational health, and I'm happy to share these documents with the audience, because I think it covers the basic recipe for how to actually work and on the elimination of health risks. And one of the key documents to me was the document on top on the screen here called Good Practice Guidance on Occupational Health Risk Assessment. What this document actually does is provide guidance in simple terms. How do you actually look at a workplace to identify what are the substances or the stresses in that workplace that can make employees ill, and how to actually manage it in very simple steps, which I've thought it's quite a good guidance for somebody that wants to start from a very low basis. Now, I must just give a bit of a disclaimer here. I was the chair of the group that wrote this document, so I might be selling it to you, but it's a really good document to look into.
It's free.
It's freely available. Sorry?
Isn't that is free? You are not trying to
It's
sell?
free from the Icmm website, so anybody can download the document and the supporting documents. And I'll share with you the link with that document. And I think really it's a really good document. On the Icmm website, we've also produced 2 or 3 case studies in the form of YouTube videos that shares with audiences the basic principles for managing inhalable hazards or dust in the workplace, and a few others. So there's quite a number of useful links that one can follow on the Icmm website.
Yeah, sorry.
We are also, especially within South African mining industry, but then also in the company that I work for, but it's also a shared vision with the Icmm, is the use of technology and how we can use innovative approaches in the health workspace. So a lot of our challenges come from the inavailability of data, because we don't have good data in terms of how many people are exposed to dust or noise and so forth. And together that data is actually quite time-consuming and expensive, because you need to hire the services of occupational hygienists, get the equipment to measure that the dust levels or noise levels. So part of our strategy to work around this is a piece of work and initiative to understand how we can automate some of these processes, and especially how we can use sensor and sensor technology in the workplace to get more representative data coming in and more year-to-date data to take quicker decisions to manage our risk appropriately.
Yes,
and this is typically what we'll get from those sensor data. So what you'll see here is a live data streaming from a dust sensor in the workplace. In this specific site or this operation, we work against a limit of 3 milligrams per cubic meters of air. And you'll see by having real-time data, we actually can get good track how we manage the dust in this workplace. You'll see that the guys did record a bit of exceedance there, but they were able to rectify it quite quickly and almost go back to a normal situation. And I think that's the future, is to look also how we can use technology to manage our health risks in the workplace more proactively.
Great. Thank you very much, Cas. Cas, you mentioned a specific word. Actually, it was associated with the terminology, zero fatalities. And when I was at a session with my colleague from Minerals Council, South Africa, a few days ago, Dr. Pakati, I asked the same question to him. He was talking about zero harm. Do you really believe zero fatalities, zero harm is an acceptable concept? I know this is actually a very hot question, but I would like to see your view on it.
My personal opinion is yes, I think it is. If we can talk to the hearts and the mind of our employees, if we can talk to the hearts and minds of our employers and managers, and keep on doing the right things. That, however, goes hand in hand with a zero tolerance for risk. And I think one cannot separate the two, because you cannot achieve zero harm if you do have a certain tolerance for risk. And you know, if you look at the industry and you look at those fatalities that still occur, more than often, the risk was known to the employees in that, or the employees in that area, but for a number of reasons, that risk was ignored or overwritten. And I believe, and we've got enough information to show that there are big mines across this world, big underground mines, deep level mines, that was able to run significant periods without any fatalities. And I think it's not going to happen overnight. I think we should not lie to each other. It's a journey. But I do think if we get the right systems in place, if we get the right minds in place, the right commitment from all partners involved, it is achievable, yes.
Actually, you are right. When I look at this specifically, when I look at the South African mining industry, the total number of the fatalities in 27 years ago, it was more than 600, but last year it was only 51. You mentioned the number in 2017, the number of the fatalities was 90, but we know last year it was 51, and as of today in 2020, it's 51. It's plotting, it's going flat now, but still, I think it's a quite long journey. And the last question in my mind, Cas, if you don't mind, maybe I'm diluting the topic here, but also there is a lot of collaboration in South Africa in terms of companies and research organizations and state. I think Mine Health and Safety Council is one of them. Is quite unique or typical example, if I don't mind. And government has defined certain milestones, and dust noise is one of them.
That's absolutely correct. So in South Africa, we've got the Minerals Council, previously known as the Mineral Chamber of Mines, and all the members, the mining companies which is members to the Minerals Council, has actually signed up to these targets towards our journey to zero harm. And I think what's important here is this whole concept of zero harm is actually forms a committee. And the committee is chaired by the CEO of the companies. And the CEOs of the companies actually set the pace that we shall eliminate all fatalities and we work towards zero harm. From that committee, then, there was a number of targets that the mining houses or the mining companies agreed to. And that specifically includes, as you said, targets for incident elimination and targets for exposure to dust and silica elimination and targets for noise elimination. So those targets were actually also agreed to not only by companies, but also by government and by our union and worker representations. So everybody knows what the targets are and everybody works together in collaboration towards that targets. Now, like any other arrangement for collaboration, we don't always agree with each other, but the targets are there and mining companies are held to those targets. And again, I think we've got a 10-year track record now, and some of those targets were believed to be unachievable in the start of this whole journey. But now the evidence on the table are showing that indeed, if we put our minds and effort into this, some of these targets are within reach, and some of our mining houses already has reached these targets. A similar type of collaboration also exists in the Icmm, where companies work together across boundaries, across international boundaries, across culture boundaries, work together and to share knowledge. And I think that's very important, is win a race. We cannot waste time by everybody spending time and money to get to the answers. So a lot of collaboration happening, a lot of sharing. The latest initiative from the Icmm is actually collaboration between companies and equipment manufacturers, where we specifically focus on people, vehicle interactions. So how can we eliminate those fatalities by working together with equipment manufacturers like CAT, Komatsu, but then also the companies. So how does all these companies work together for a common goal? And I think that is essential. To come back to your first question around South African Institute of Occupational Hygienists, that is also in our mandate to reach out to anybody that would like to learn from us, that like to share. We also are members of Occupational Health Without Borders. And again, it's a collaboration forum because of this, one of the challenges we've got in occupational health space is skills and resources. And it will be unwise if we don't share these skills and resources and knowledge we've got.
Yes, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Really, look, it's already 25 minutes, and that answer takes us to the end of session this afternoon. Once again, I would like to thank you very much for being a part of this discussion this afternoon. Very much appreciated, and God bless you. Thank you very much, Cas.
Thank you for the invitation, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.